Welcome to the Four Visions Market podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforest, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah Ganessa, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Hey there, Four Visions tribe. This week I sat down with a beautiful sister, Mars, also known as Dose of Diosa. Mars is a folk herbalist, community builder, and daughter of the earth. Her practice is rooted in earth-based healing traditions of Curanderismo. Mars stumbled upon the medicine path at a time in her life when she was searching for ways to heal her body both physically and emotionally, a pivotal point in her life when she decided to begin the journey of unpacking lifelong childhood trauma. She remembered the ways her great-grandmother would speak to her about the healing powers of herbs and how they could heal us from sickness and emotional turbulence. The more Mars learned about plants, the more she learned about herself. Mars's life mission and purpose is to guide others back into relationship with the natural world. In this way, she believes we can begin to not only heal ourselves, but in turn become better stewards of the earth. And the better that we understand the world around us, we can also better understand the world within us. Our conversation today was so fun for me, and it was so great to connect with Mars and hear her wonderful words of wisdom on all things plants, walking life in balance and beauty, her work with the Yahe and the Colombian Taitas, and different important teachings she's learned while walking her path. She is a beautiful soul whose light radiates through her words. I know you will love this episode, so thank you for tuning in, family, and enjoy.
A quick word from our sponsors before we begin this episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Suma Kausai Music Festival in partnership with Four Visions Market and Finca Ambiwasi. We welcome you to join us in Colombia at Finca May 30th through June 2nd, 2023 for 4 days of epic music, celebration, teachings from wisdom keepers, plant medicine, and community building. Suma Kausai is an Ingano term meaning the good life, and this festival will truly embrace the joy and sweetness that this good life has to offer us. Headlining, we have some incredible world-renowned musicians, including Pia, Ajit, and Grupo Putumayo. Our lineup is full of beautiful medicine musicians from the Finca Ambiwasi family, as well as Colombian musicians and some more surprise guests. Learn more about the event by going to tinyurl.com/Suma Kausai Festival. That's Suma, S-U-M-A, Kausai, C-A-U-S-A-Y Festival. This is an all-inclusive event that includes pickup and drop-off at Bogota Airport, all food and accommodations, and all the incredible concerts, workshops, and offerings during our 4 days together. Due to the size of our center, the festival is limited to 50 participants, and we're filling up quickly. If you feel the call to join us this spring, don't wait. Sign up today to reserve your spot at this super special healing event. Welcome, sister. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your voice and your message with us today.
Thank you. It's an honor for you guys to have me here. And I'm also looking forward to the beautiful conversation that we get to have today.
Feeling really blessed. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. And I'm just excited to get to drop in with you and hear a little bit more about your story. So with that, let's jump right into it. Would you share with us a little bit about who you are and your healing journey and how you came to work with the plants?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Mars, and I'm a folk herbalist and a forever devoted student to my ancestral lineage in medicine of Curanderismo, descendant of the Mayans, of the Nahuapipiles, proud Salvadorian. And really what brought me to the work that I do today is actually remembering the voice of my great grandmother and the
Mhm.
teachings that she left behind. So to take it back a little bit, it was, at a time in my life, like most people, what brings us to a massive healing shift is, going through a very painful and challenging, season in life. And so I found myself going through the heartbreak of having to leave a very abusive relationship. And so it just opened up a lot of wounds for me that since a child I was carrying wounds and traumas around my body, my femininity, my voice, and my truth. And, I just got to a point where I was like, I'm just done with this. I'm sad, depressed. I feel like I have no true joy and purpose in life. So I kind of at that point had to bring it back to the basics, and just doing small daily things that made me feel good. And one of those things for me was, at the time I was really into fitness and working out and moving my body. And that opened up the window for me to also become more mindful of, the foods I was consuming, how I was supplementing my body. And then that's what got me thinking, well, instead of taking all these herbal, pill supplements, why don't I just actually work with the whole plant? Maybe that would be better for me. And so that's where my great grandmother's voice would come in, where she would speak about arnica. And arnica was this plant that the woman would use for, almost everything. It was like you're having menstrual cramps, drink arnica tea. A woman's bleeding too much after, giving birth, take a bath with arnica. And so it was just kind of all these things that were just like floating in my mind. And so then I was like, well, let me give these herbs a try. And so I was a novice at an herbalism. I didn't know where to get arnica. It wasn't like a thing that you could just go buy at Whole Foods. So one thing that we did always have in my house, though, was jamaica, hibiscus flower. So I was like, I'm just going to work with hibiscus flower every single day and see what happens. And I think just following that nudge and that kind of voice and intuition that was telling me to go into that path led me to find not only a lot of physical healing, but it was like this spiritual connection that I felt to my grandmother and to my land and to my ancestry and lineage. And that kind of opened the door of curiosity for me to just begin to try to find information out there about who we really were. Where did I descend from? What were the ways that we would heal ourselves, not only physically, but, spiritually and emotionally? And that kind of led me to traveling back to my home country after like 10 years of not going back to El Salvador. And being there was just so nostalgic. And I was on this like search to connect with elders and people that were still carrying the traditional medicines of our people.
Mhm.
And I found that it wasn't that easy actually in my home country. That my whole
Mhm.
family was like, first of all, why are you trying to go backwards? We have all this
Uh-huh.
modern medicine that could help you. And, you have all these blessings back home that you could fulfill yourself with. And it just wasn't really resonating with me. And it was really disheartening actually to keep hearing that like all the indigenous people, all those people are gone. They're no longer here. They're no longer practicing. That didn't quite feel true. So that led me to continue to go back to my home country time and time again in search of it, going to other countries throughout Central America, like Mexico, down south in Oaxaca, going down to South America. And, there's a more prevalent and intact community of these indigenous people. And so through going back, I was able to be led and guided into a beautiful remembering that everything that I was searching for was actually like inside of me.
Mhm.
And that even my nudge to just start to work with plants, that was like a seed, a prayer of my ancestors that was still alive in me. So although it
Uh-huh.
wasn't so prevalent and alive in my home country, so that's kind of what brought me to really my purpose of, okay, I'm here to remember and to help others remember and to continue to amplify the voices of those indigenous elders that are still sharing the stories of all of our ancestors, right? Because we're all connected and we're all one. And so I would say, that was really what kind of brought me back, was just following that intuition, the voice of my grandmother, to, start to experiment with herbs. And then it just felt like I said, this big remembering for me. And that's when I just kind of started to dig deeper. And life itself, I think when I opened myself to that, life itself started to present teachers and people to come into my field that could start to guide me more towards different plants and how to use them, and how to not only heal our bodies, but our hearts and our spirits, our mind. And now it's been a beautiful journey of like the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. So much resonance there. When we place that prayer, we don't know the form that it's going to be answered, but it comes in the most magical ways. And later on, we always have that hindsight, and we see the ways in which life was always weaving, co-conspiring with us to bring us that answer to the prayer. And just like it has been that way for you, and things have fallen into place as soon as you asked for it, and as soon as you put that intention out, to reconnect with your lineage and your ancestors, and the medicine of the ones that walked before you. And super beautiful to hear, the challenges too that you face even within your own family, because this is common too we're looking for more information, whether it be, and wanting to uncover the stories of our lineage or the stories of our bloodline. And our parents don't want to talk about it, or our grandparents
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about it, right? Or the
Yeah.
simply just negation of the wisdom that resides within the ancestral stories, right? So really beautiful and resonant. And then of course this concept of remembering, right? Because for so many of us, I think on the spiritual path, once we really tap into this understanding that it is a remembering process, that we're not
Mm-hmm.
learning anything new, but it's a coming home to the truths that have been evident in this plane on this earth since the beginning of time. It affords us this infinite potential and infinite library of cosmic wisdom that is available to us as we go studying and opening ourselves wider to the truth and to this beautiful path. So very, very beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of background to how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, thank you. And also I want to say, like, I think that's it's a beautiful part of the story that forms a tapestry for all of us who are remembering, and that might feel like I don't even know where to start to unpack or to discover where my
Mm-hmm.
roots come from. Something that has come to me recently is like, even the fact that we might not know the right terminology or the right name of who were those that came before us, or what the exact practices or traditions were, the name of the what they would call their actual land, right? I think all of that forms a beautiful part of that tapestry of like why we are still here, right? It's the fact
Mm-hmm.
that we don't know all of that quite yet is because our ancestors had to go through a lot of challenge, a lot of abuse, a lot of death and suffering and repression. And so all that beautiful information, was either erased for some time or just muted for some time, dug deep for us to have to be here today and to do the work to remember. And so for me, it's actually like that, what I would call maybe a challenge of like, for those years that I was going back home and asking questions and being like, who were we? What did we call ourselves? What did we practice? The challenge of that was a beautiful part of like that story of why we are still here. We are still here because we are strong, and they tried to bury us, but they didn't do quite
Mm-hmm.
a good job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like that burning desire to feel connected again forms a part of that story of, the resilience of the earth and earth people and the earthways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, a common thread within these conversations I've been having on this podcast has been this going back to our roots and understanding our story, and then from that place seeking out the tools and the transit traditions that are available and are accessible to us to support us in our healing journey. But first there has to be an orientation of who we are and the lineage that we carry. And so that was an important part of your journey, right? To go back and understand the state of the ancestral traditions of your peoples, to be able to also have understanding that you're here to resurrect that, right? And you're here to
Mhm.
continue the
Yes.
work. Mhm. And so then to be able to go seek out these other traditions and other elders and teachers to orient you and guide you, it makes everything so much more potent and makes so much more sense, right? Why we're brought to who we're brought to, the teachers that come to us. But first, there has to be that orientation and knowing and getting to know who we are, what we're working with in this lifetime, right? What our karmic inheritance is to heal, so that we have that clear direction from which to go forward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm. So talk to me a little bit more about your relationship with the plants. You can hear your love and your passion for the plants just as you talk a little bit about your path of herbalism, your path of healing with the plants, and how has your relationship with the plants helped you to deepen your connection with nature as well as with yourself?
Yeah. So, for me, and in my practice specifically, what I like to create is safe spaces for people to meet with the plants, right? So, what that looks like for me is remembering that plants are very sentient beings and that they have a consciousness, and that, all it takes is to open ourselves up to be in conversation with them, right? And what I've come to know is that plants do a beautiful job at helping to bridge the mind and body together, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we live in a time where, as humans, we've developed the strength of our mind a little bit too much. And so we're too much here, we're too much in the linear way of looking at things and thinking. And that's why we feel so disconnected from our body. That's why so many people are suffering from things like depression and anxiety. And so, plants for me have really helped to bring me back, to guide me back into my body. Physically, plants offer a plethora of healing, from nourishing the tissues of our body to nourishing and feeding and rewiring the nervous system. And all of this really helps for us to just land more deeply into the wisdom of our body. And so it helps to build trust. And I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people are suffering with, is like not quite trusting in themselves or being able to trust in these natural cycles that the earth likes to work in, right? Because we're so much in our mind, we're so linear, we're trying to get from A to B to C, while nature wants to take us through a spiral to propel us
Mm-hmm.
forward and then kind of bring us back just a little deeper and then move forward again, right? And so plants really help us to be more comfortable and open to riding these different regenerative currents of energy that are moving through nature that we are not separate from. So I find that plants really help to remind us that we are a part of nature. Like, the more intimately that you start to work with plants, no matter what plant it is, even if it is the mint in your spice cabinet, and you're
Mm-hmm.
making a tea out of it, but you take a moment to really pause, to be with it in a meditative way, to be in conversation, to notice what in your body is shifting as you're drinking this. That's going to start to unlock wisdom and information that's in your body that's been waiting for you to kind of take that moment to listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then through that, we feel more connected. We feel like we can drop into a deeper space of trust within our own selves to hear the voice of our intuition. And then that helps to kind of silence and push out the outside noise of, what everyone's trying to tell us that we should be, that we should do. And it helps us to move at our own pace and rhythm. And then that helps to regulate our nervous system, where we don't feel like we're constantly, at threat, where we have what we need so that we can navigate through all these different challenges of life. So I think plants just, again, help to really guide us back into our bodies, into our truth, and into our knowing, right? There's like knowing that's spelled with like K-N-O-W. And then there's like knowing, gnosis, the G-N-O-S-I-S, which is like that deep body embodiment wisdom, right? And so plants are just these wise beings that were here long before we were. It's like I feel that we are a byproduct of plants. Without the plants and the oxygen that they put into our space, what would we have to breathe? What would we have to take in? Right? So it's like each inhale that we take, we are weaving ourselves deeper into, all the plants around us. And with each exhale, we're also giving back to the plants that then take that in as their inhale. And, so just forming a relationship and working with plants in whichever way feels best for you, whether it is, growing a garden, implementing it more into the dishes that you cook, or working with them as teas, or for limpias or aromatherapy. Like all these ways just help to connect us to these plants, and they help to guide us to untap more wisdom inside of us. So it's just this beautiful relationship of kind of helping each other out. It's like they help us to feel more embodied, and then we help them by propagating them, by caring for them, right? And this forms a more whole relationship where we feel like we are actually a part of something much greater than ourselves, right? I think that's kind of what everyone is after in this modern day and age, is just like feeling like they are a part of something, or feeling like what they are doing is adding value, to either their household, to their communities, or to their friends, loved ones. And it can bring a lot of stress, and can be very overwhelming because there's so much pressure of what that needs to look like. But all plants want is for us to just like say hi, embrace them, welcome them in. And so it's just so soothing and so filling and so nourishing to have these relationships. So I think it just helps us to feel more whole in the sense of who we are, and feel more whole in our purpose and what we're here to do, to be nurturers and caretakers as well as like the natural world.
Wow, I love that answer. So eloquently said. And I really just resonate tremendously with all of that. Ultimately, we're here to come back into union, right? And to find this place of connection. And so many of us are living so separate, and the plants really do connect us with all of creation, just like you were saying, allows us to tap into our oneness with all of nature. And from this place, we're never alone, right? And so they become allies for us on the path. And from this place of allyship, we walk in relationship with them, right? So it really does, it changes everything. It transforms our whole way of being, our whole way of interacting with the world, our perspective and the lens that we see life living through us. And so, yes, there's so many beautiful things there that you just shared. So, on that note, how do we take the wisdom that plants have to offer us and utilize it to be in greater relationship with the earth, utilize it to be stewards of the earth, and to live in this place of protecting and preserving the legacy, the inheritance that we have received through our great mother?
I would say it's really actually quite simple. It's like, you want to kind of look at it like a friend, right? When you have someone that you love dearly, that's important to you, there is very little effort kind of that has to come in order to express your care and love for them. It's just this automatic and default part of that relationship of like give and take, right? And in order to form those deep bonds that we have with our friends, with our loved ones, our family, our significant other, it takes courting, right? Like you have to court each other. You have to get to know each other. You have to be in communication. So I think the best way to be able to bridge that wisdom that plants have to offer is first, like we have to be open ourselves up to even be in communication, to court nature. And what that looks like could be so different for everyone depending on where they're at and how open they are. But it can be as simple as like going on a walk in your neighborhood, and I'm sure there's always a tree that you're like, man, that's a really cool tree. And taking time to maybe stop by and sit at the root of the tree and observe the different branches, the different leaves, the different textures of the bark, right? And so in this way, you start to learn different things of this plant the same way you would each time you sit with a friend and you have
Mm-hmm.
conversation. You learn something new about them that makes you fall in love with them even more, that makes you admire them even more. And that admiration and that build and that growing love is what makes it easy for us to just show up in this default state of service, right? Because love is actually quite simple if we just allow it to exist and be there, and if we court it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best way to really be in service to plants or to, be a good steward and caretaker is to court it, to be open to meet it, to get to know it, to be in relationship with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. And I love the simplicity, in the words that you're sharing because it really is so simple. And we overcomplicate things and we make them, to the point where they're practically unattainable. And it's as simple as going to that tree or looking to see what plants are growing in your backyard or in your neighborhood. And these simple actions are so easily integrated into our daily routine and provide us this incredible portal into studying with the plants. And my teacher also talks about this, the dialogue with the plants, the conversation with the plants. And it's so romantic almost because
Yeah.
ultimately it's like bringing this, yeah, it's bringing this romance to life, right? To the force of nature, to every breath, to every step that we walk upon the earth, and bringing back color, right? The plants
Mhm.
represent this vibrancy that exists within each of us, and that is, our natural way. So I think also that the plants reflect to us our essence in that way and provide this incredible mirror for us to come back into the truth of who we are. And so I love these words that you're sharing because they provide really concrete examples and simplify things in a way that make it really, really digestible. And that's so important in today's world because it's really these tools that we have all around us. They are incredible keys for us to find this place of remembering, to
Mhm.
find this place of coming home. And so for if everyone could just take advantage of the tree on their sidewalk or the plants in their neighborhood garden, it would be such a great impact to the way that we see one another, and the way that we relate with each other, the way that we walk
Yeah.
upon this earth. So yeah, thank you so much for these beautiful sharings.
Yeah. And also it's like, I think that's why so many people are intimidated of like, well, how do I even connect? Because it's like, it's still that very linear way of thinking that most feel like they have to know everything about plants first in order to like be able to appreciate them or take care of them. And it's like, no, that's the same conversation
Mm-hmm.
of like, you're using your mind too much trying to be in relationship with it. It's like you just got to
Mm-hmm.
feel, just go and appreciate, use your senses, your sense of sight to appreciate the beauty of the different textures and colors of plants,
Mm-hmm.
your smell, sense of smell and smelling the different flowers, touch. And again, just feeling all the different textures that plants have to offer. And so this is what connects. This is how plants even invite us to be in relationship to them by like being that bridge of mind into body of like, let's use our
Mm-hmm.
senses to just feel, to just be present. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And it's ultimately this invitation into presence, into the present
Mhm.
moment, right? That nature gives us to
Yeah.
value life and to come into this place of greater communion. So many of us are living in autopilot, right? And so just simply slowing down and taking awareness and, like you said, utilizing these orifices that God gave to us to literally give flavor to life, right? To give
Mhm.
beauty to this beautiful life. So to utilize that as a way of reverence too, as like a doorway into greater honoring of life and greater honoring of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would love to ask you to share a little bit more about, your journey, your spiritual studies. I was looking on your page today, and one thing that you'd written that I really liked was this reflection of when your waking life and your dream life aligned and came
Mm,
into that place of harmony and walking, side by side. And I really loved that because I think many of us on the spiritual path are in this place of transformation, of change, making the changes in our daily responsibilities and our day-to-day commitments so that we can be living like life is a ceremony in every moment and in every breath. So I'd love to hear you share a little bit more about how this process was for you, what had to fall away for you to step into that place where you really felt, okay, I've arrived, I'm in alignment, and
mm,
I'm walking my dream.
yeah. So it started actually with meeting one of my greatest teachers, plant teachers, the Yahe, which is a medicine that is coming from, the different jungles of South America along Colombia. And it's, I guess you could say it would be like the Colombian brew of ayahuasca, different type of brew, but similar type of medicine. And when I got to meet with this plant, it really helped to activate my dream state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these master plant teachers, what they actually do is they help to shift us into a brainwave state where we are in a full dream state. And these plants help to guide us into dreaming our true and original dream.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is a lot of people today aren't as connected to their dreams, right? It's like we look at our dreams as just this thing that we do every single night, or maybe we don't because we don't remember our dreams, but everyone does dream. You just might not remember. And so, it's like we kind of don't pay attention to it. And, our dreams are the space that we enter where we're fully navigating into the invisible and the spiritual realms. And everything has to happen first in the spiritual realm before it happens in the physical realm. So, when I began to work with the Yahe, it began to really help to connect me back into my dreams and to dream my true dream, to connect me to my ancestral dreams. And from there came a lot of wisdom, a lot of information. And then, the true work when we go into ceremony with these master plant teachers is the ceremony that follows afterwards. Is
Mm-hmm.
how are we actually integrating, and not only integrating, like being like, okay, I understand what I felt and what I saw, but how are you also implementing, this information that you received into your day to day life? And so what that literally looked like for me was like, okay, I'm having these, when I'm going into ceremony, I'm being, blasted open. My consciousness is being blasted open, and I'm, receiving and seeing so much beautiful things. And when you're in that state, and even when you're in dream state, without, the assistance of plant medicines, it's like our dreams are this space where kind of there's this infinite potential that can happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can kind of shift and morph and travel to all these different places and visit people that are probably no longer here in our dream state, right? It really defies the laws of our physical reality, what can be possible in our dream state. And I think the true medicine of our dreams and the true practice that we're meant to embody here in this ordinary reality is to carry that essence, carry that like principle of that in this reality, there's infinite potential as well.
Mm.
And so, right, when we're in our dreams, we're not thinking so linearly. Like, we're not like, oh, no, I can't do this. I can't jump off this mountain and fly. It's like you just do it in dreams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of frightening, the idea of that in ordinary reality, because again, we've been conditioned to think in a very limited way of what is possible. But again, when you start to open yourself up to the fact that there is all this infinite potential that we get to magnetize, that's when your wake state starts to be very similar to your dream state. And so that's kind of what I was speaking to, where it's like the veil thins between my wake state and my dream state. And it just kind of mirrors and reflects right back into each other. And so carrying that, like that energy and that principle of like looking at everything in life as if though I could magnetize what it was that I wanted, so long as I really stay true to my heart and my moral compass, right? Like, what are your core values in this lifetime? You know, and for me, that looks like integrity, love, service, and humility. So whenever, you know, any experience that I'm going through that maybe I'm like feeling stuck or it's a bit of a challenge, I go back to my moral compass and I ask myself, how can I show up with one of these principles or all? And moving through that way is a very like grounded way to manifest, to open up the potential for manifestation to happen and for our dreams to actually come to fruition here in physical reality. I hope that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm. No, for sure. And it's so beautifully said too, because ultimately it's this process of aligning those two worlds, right? And there's so much infinite potential of what's happening in the unseen and the seen world, right? And so to be able to harmonize those things and to take away all those limiting beliefs, like you said, that we don't have those limiting beliefs when we dream, but somehow in the construct of this physical plane, we are so in our mind that we're constantly being prevented from doing, you know, what we want to do in the truth of our heart
Mhm.
because of those beliefs, right? So to be constantly in that review, in that reflection of where I can, you know, raise the frequency in this material plane in the day to day so that it matches the frequency in my dream, right? In my
Mhm.
in the non-waking world, in the invisible.
Yeah. That's the thing is like also, you know, for some people, it might seem kind of like crazy talk because it's like, you know, what is this invisible realm? What is this spiritual realm? And how do we know it's
Mm-hmm.
actually real? And, you know, the thing about also our physical reality is that we're experiencing it here in like the large scale, right? Like these physical things, our physical bodies. But what's making all of this actually work is the smaller subatomic world, right? So if we get into like quantum physics, you know, this explains quantum physics is the language and the law of these small subatomic particles of like inside the atom, right? Which is what
Mm-hmm.
makes all of us, is what makes our body, is the accumulation of all these tiny atoms, right? And the way in which that world works is completely different than the way that the large scale world works, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we can't negate that we are all here because of the mechanics of that small world that we can't see. It isn't invisible, but it's a very real world, right? And so that's kind of the way that I like to bridge or frame that, you know, that's like the spiritual world as well. It's one
Mm-hmm.
that is very much there and it's very much real. It just operates with a whole different set of laws than our physical reality. And is one that's much more open. And again, it's where that infinite potential is available to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so if we get out of our mind and we go more into our body and into feeling, it is easier for us to come into that, you know, liminal space where we can live in between both worlds and be a good bridge for both.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think the key is that everything originates in those spiritual molecules, right? So
Mhm.
everything originates first in the spiritual world. The physical world is a reaction to what's taking place in the spirit. And a lot of people don't understand that, or they have doubt regarding that truth when they first come to work with plant medicine. But when they start to see the ways in which the work that they're doing in the spiritual realms in ceremony is directly impacting how they're able to show up in their daily life, it's like an incredible, I think that's one of the beauties of the way these master plants teach, right? They expand our consciousness in a way that allows us to believe in the possibilities that exist all around us that we haven't been allowing ourselves to believe up until this point, right? And even disease or things that we don't want to happen in the physical world, when they happen, it's because there is an imbalance or something that is out of equilibrium in the spiritual cells. So when we go to nourish the spiritual molecules, we're fortifying and bringing into balance the system that allows us to sustain this higher frequency, this frequency of love, this frequency of truth, this frequency of beauty, which is our, it's our birthright, right? We're here to live in that place of thriving. And so we are in this journey as human beings of coming back to this place and learning how to thrive again, right? Like our ancestors did for thousands of years. So I would love to hear your words, your insight on what thriving means, right? And I'm looking at you. You're a radiant goddess, and you can tell, you're thriving, right? I can just feel it. So, what is thriving, and how do we live from that place more fully?
When I think about what thriving is, to me, like the first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is feeling safe. Like feeling really safe. Because when we really like break down what it means to feel safe, it means that we're taken care of, right? That we're doing what we need to take care of ourselves, and we're also allowing ourselves to be taken care of, whether that's by our communities or by these beautiful plants, right? And so when that safetiness settles in deep into our core, into our root, it's like the roots of a plant. How does a plant thrive? It has a healthy root system, right? It's being nourished by all the colonies of all these different microorganisms inside the soil. And so for me, thriving looks like having a really solid community and home base, whether that is chosen family or your blood family, right? Your community. It's like, to me, that is thriving. My life started to thrive. My spirit started to thrive the moment that I started to open myself to really connect with like-minded individuals that saw me and that I saw myself in them as well. And that created this like just solid base where from there I could just like sprout and open up and just be liberated and feel free. So thriving to me feels like safetiness, feels like community and family.
Yeah, that ecosystem that allows us to rise up together, right? And to be interconnected. That's a beautiful definition because it really speaks to what we're all craving as human beings, and to feel, to feel part of something greater than ourselves. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I resonate with that definition.
Yeah. And that's why I love like our plant friends, is because they just help us to remember like that we are all a part of this like big, beautiful relationship with one another. Right. And like, we're not meant to do this alone. Plants cannot like live on their own. Like they need humans to a certain extent. Right. And we need them as much as we need the animals, as much as we need the water, as much as we need, clean air. So plants just help us in like this really simple, small way to remember that we are just this component, this part of a bigger, larger picture. And to me, when I really start to think about that, immediately, I just feel better. I feel more relaxed, because then it's like kind of like what you were saying earlier. We're not alone. Plants remind us that like we are not alone, right? And that we don't have to take everything on by ourselves. And so from that space of like, okay, a little bit of weight is off my shoulders, that's what enables me to be able to thrive, because I feel good, right? To thrive, we have to feel good. And to feel good, we have to do good, right? And to do good means that we are taking care of ourselves, and we are also taking care of others.
Yes, I love it. So earlier in the season, we had a 3-part interview series about the culture of Yahe. So our listeners are familiar with the Yahe. And if you're listening to this episode and you haven't listened to the episodes with our different speakers about, yeah, hey, go back and check them out because they're awesome. But on that note, I would love to hear a little bit more about what your work with the Taitas has been like for you, and what are some key lessons that you've learned through working with the Colombian medicine in the Colombian Amazon, and what are some of the big takeaways that really impacted your life on a big level?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, yahe was one of, those plants that maybe like 2 years into already my path of like herbalism and, trying this remembering, I met and I had the beautiful opportunity to, meet one of my teachers that I continue to work with today. That we're actually going into ceremony this weekend. And so I'm super excited. So it's been about 4 years of working and learning and, being able to have the blessing to go back to the Putumayo jungles and to study under the Taitas there. I actually just got back about a month ago. I was in the jungle for 2 months, like in a deep dive with Taitas and, drinking medicine and in ceremony. And, what's really interesting about that experience recently is that you're asking me like, what is one of the biggest takeaways and lessons that I received? And I mean, there's just so many, but the one that's been really present recently is while I was there, I'm asking all these questions to the Taitas, and they're kind of really like these cosmic, type of questions about consciousness and spirituality. And every time I was expecting like this really deep, profound answer. And what I found interesting is like every time their answer was just like so simple. And they would just, I was kind of asking like, like, what does medicine want to teach us? When I'm seeing this or that. And the response was always like, the yahe is here to help us to organize our relationship with our family. And it was always just that. It always just brought it back to like, yahe is medicine for the family. Yahe is medicine for the family. Because when that family system is in order and is healthy and thriving, like you said, thriving, everything from there thrives. The community thrives. The land thrives because we're all working together and in unison to take care of one another. And, it's something that we all know, right? That's important, is to nourish and to nurture our family systems. And yet, hearing this being, said to me over and over and over again, just made me really appreciate how simple actually healing can be. Right? I think in medicine culture, at least like here in the States, what I see is like people love to be like blasted open and to be sent out into the cosmos and into different, realms and things. And then what are we doing with that information? How are we bridging it back here? Right. And so for me, that was just like a really simple, very tangible, very digestible way of like all that magic, all the spaciousness, all that wisdom that we receive from all these different places and spaces can be truly felt when we, bring it back into our family and we bring it back into our community. Because then we see the reflection of the magic of all that outside of us within our community and the different faces of the people of our community, right? Because each person has their unique magic and essence. And, we all come from a very special place in this great natural world in the universe. And so that's why we're all brought here, is to bring that into the physical manifestation. So I would say that was really one of them. And then another piece that was like really so significant to me was the discipline behind the dietas. right? Like the cleaning up the diet and the food. And, I've been someone that for many years, like I eat very healthy. I'm very, conscious of what I put into my body. But then going and studying under two different taitas, who had a very strict and rigid diet protocol, was one that initially going into it, I was like, oh, this seems like it's maybe a little bit fanatical. Like, it's too strict and too rigid. Like, how is eating, a papaya going to affect me in medicine? Like, papaya is good, right? And then later, right, as I was continuing to sit with medicine, what came through is like, it is the discipline that we have in like really cleaning up our diet that shows this deep reverence and respect for the medicine. And it's like that sacrifice that we're doing is this like offering into the spirit realm that communicates like our dedication and again like our reverence to meet plants where they are at, right? And I think there's a difference between plants meeting us where we're at, which can happen, which is something that is possible and beautiful as well. And then there's a different type of study and experience when we meet plants where they are at. And that allows us to go even deeper into the medicine, to receive very distinct type of visions and information from the plant, because they're like, oh, you're releasing. It's kind of like that, again, the discipline piece and need to like have something that we could have, but when we choose not to, it's like we're making space inside of ourselves to receive more. And so that was something that like, I was already used to in all these years of like prior to medicine, cleaning up, what I'm eating, 2-3 weeks, in advance to prepare. But the way in which it is done in the jungle when you're studying with these elders is also very different than it's kind of, done here. And so that was really humbling. And what I can speak to is that in doing that and holding that discipline in the diet, the level of like mental fortitude that I have now, that is priceless. And I think that is really important when we're journeying with these plant medicines that again really like open us up. It's like, how can we stay focused? How can we stay, connected still in our body so we can bridge all of that is coming through, right, with medicine. And so for anyone that is, questioning the importance of the dietas and why we need to do them, I would say, until you really try it and until you really like go into it with full dedication, you will notice like the night and day difference of the experience and the way in which you're able to retain what it is that you receive and continue to maintain that even afterwards, even outside of ceremony. So I think that was like I had an opportunity to come into a deeper arrival into appreciating like the true importance of these dietas.
You're really bringing it today, Mars. Thank you. Thank you so much. I loved that. So good and so resonant on so many levels. Um, yeah, with the family element of things, the Yahe is that. It is the medicine of family, and it's so simple, and I love that sharing that you gave, because it's so true where we live oftentimes, with our loved ones in houses, 2,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet. They're right next door to us and we're texting them asking if they're home, So there's this complete disconnection in today's world and in all of the things that we have around us in entertainment, technology, different things that continuously just create more distance, more space and separation. And the Yahe really does teach us how to communicate, how to sit down with one another and to work things out. And that is kind of like one of the original ways in which the Yahe was used by the indigenous communities, and I think it's interesting too, because today people go to plant medicine to heal. And while healing has always been, a key component of the architecture of these plant medicine communities. If we go back to the original use, oftentimes it was for caring for the community, for counsel, for organization, like you said, and there was never these serious, grave diseases that we see today either. So because they cared for their community, they cared for their tribe, and so there was a complete. It's a different way, right? A different way of working with the medicine than what we kind of first think of when we think of going to an ayahuasca ceremony or going to drink medicine. And so as you go deeper into a culture and you start to kind of learn what that culture is about, it's always so beautiful to get to really kind of understand like the crux of that specific culture's teaching. And I agree with you. I've been drinking yahe for 10 years, and that's what my teachers have shared with me too over the last decade, as far as like really it starts with the family, and if things are not well in the family, like you said, we're not able to sustain our projects. We're not able to sustain outside the community and to bring things forth. And so to organize the family is one of the greatest spiritual responsibilities that we have. And it's funny because sometimes I'll talk to people on the spiritual path and they'll say like how good they are and how spiritual they are. And then they start talking to me about how they don't talk to their mom or they don't talk to one of their siblings, right? There's like, they don't have a relationship with them. And that's usually one of the first key things that tell me that things are out of balance there. Because if we're not in communication with our blood family first, and then if we're not in good relationship with our community and those that are around us, then that's a reflection of us, right? Everything is a mirror. So how we are in how we're showing up and what we're experiencing in our relationships, it's like one of the first red flags that there's something out of balance within ourselves. And so it's a really incredible, like, navigating framework to work from. And for me as a mother, my child is a constant teacher for me because he's constantly reminding me that I need to take care of our relationship and to really prioritize that. And I have a lot of other projects. I have my spiritual path, my business. And so I'm a busy person, right? And so it's easy for him to call upon me and to say, hey, mom, just through his actions, right? Hey, mom, I need more. This relationship needs more fertilizer. And so when we're really opening and attuning to, that prioritization of the family unit, it becomes this guide, this orientation for us to be constantly checking in. And yeah, it's very easy to know when things are in balance if we're looking to the family as a guide.
Yeah. And also it's like, right, with the yahe, there's all these different animal spirits that are associated to it, right? And one of the big ones is like the jaguar, el tigre, right? When we look at like the medicine of the jaguar, it's the great harmonizer and balancer of the natural world within its ecosystem, within its environment and territory, right? So it's like that medicine of the jaguar is wanted to be bridged back into like our household, is how can we bring harmony into our household, into our community? Because when there's harmony in nature, everything just thrives, right? Back to the word of thriving. Why? Because everything feels safe. Everything is taken care of and allowed to be in this relationship of like give and take, of caring and being taken care of. Right. So bringing that like jaguar medicine into our households of like, how can we harmonize? How can we make sure that this is in harmony and in balance so that everything then that we do from there is going to carry on that energetic signature of harmony, of balance. And that's truly what we want. Like we don't want to fix everything. That's the thinking mind. That's the Western world that's telling us like we have to fix everything. It's like, no, we can coexist. It's just about harmony. It's about being able to exist with the pain and to bring in love into it. Not to just rip away the pain so that then all that there is light and love. That's not real. That's not sustainable. Because otherwise we wouldn't be able to truly show up in love and appreciation if it wasn't for those moments of suffering. That was another like big lesson with the yahe. It was like the elders would say like, the yahe kind of wants us to suffer a little bit in ceremony, right? That's why it's like it's even more purgative than ayahuasca can be. It's like a lot more of a corporal experience. There's some physical discomfort that comes from it, because when there's physical discomfort, spirit doesn't want to be in a suffering body. So then that allows us to elevate through the densities and to the spirit to be able to like rise and to be able to travel through these different realms, right? And then there's like the emotional suffering that sometimes comes online with working with these plant medicines, where we're being confronted by our fears or these traumas, right? Or these repressed aspects, these fragmented aspects of ourselves. And then when we like feel and move through that, boom, we're open to the abundance and the blessings that medicine has to offer, or that also live inside of us, right? That medicine helps to guide, to bring out. And in life, suffering is inevitable. We cannot try to move and organize our life and fix it so that there's never any type of suffering. Otherwise, there would be no growth, right? So like suffering is an important aspect of growth, of spiritual and emotional growth, right? And what the Yahe helps us to do is to embrace that suffering. It's like, right, these medicines, they can hold it all, and they help us to remember that we can too become this very flexible container. It helps to expand our bandwidth to hold, right? To be able to hold and truly integrate and love the light and the dark aspects that exist within ourselves and that are reflected outside of ourselves, and to just be in harmony with it. Just be more of a witnesser of it, right? I think that's like another aspect of like the jaguar medicine, is like the jaguar is such a skilled predator because it knows truly how to witness, how to track, right? And so like working with plants like Yahe help to open us up into, our psyche and our psychic world, and to witness what is unfolding and what is happening, to be able to track the true origin of like, where is it that it started, where we let the suffering turn into torment, right? Because when we stay stuck in suffering because we're trying so much to fix it, it becomes torment. And then that's what creates affliction and pain. And that's what makes us physically sick, is because we're not letting that suffering transmute itself into growth, into lessons, right? So that is something that now, I can carry with me even outside of ceremony, because in life we're also going to suffer, right? In ceremony, we purge and we feel uncomfortable a bit and we suffer in that way. And so, with the Yahe, it's like outside of ceremony, there's life is going to present to us many things that will, bring on suffering. And so I think Yahe really helps to build fortitude of mind, fortitude of our spirit, so that we feel safe. And so we can thrive even amidst the challenges and the suffering that, life is just going to naturally present to us, because it's inevitable. And it's also a beautiful part of life. Right? We can look at it that way.
Yeah. And I think even, the word suffering, it could also be misinterpreted, right? Like misunderstood, because we're not here to suffer, right? But things are inevitably going to happen. Life is full of beauty and challenges. And so when those challenges arise, do we suffer through them, or do we choose to grow from them, right? And I think just to make that distinction there, because, there's spiritual teachings that say that we have to suffer. But the Yahe, and my experience with it, is that we don't have to suffer. Not really, not anymore, right? That there are challenges to make us stronger, and that every situation is an opportunity to see those challenges and to grow our spiritual fibers. And I think that's what you were meaning to say, but I just wanted to clarify it a little bit, because I think that word suffering, it could scare people too, from wanting to experience the Yahe, from this path. And it isn't that, right? It's hard, but what type of spiritual growth isn't hard, right? So it's like an opportunity to really react differently when those challenges come up. And I think that's really one of the beautiful things that the Yahi provides, is this rewiring of the reactivity of the habitual patterns that we have accumulated over this lifetime and many lifetimes that cause us to get caught up in that same cycle of choosing that reaction that creates the suffering. But if we choose to see each situation, each person, each circumstance as an opportunity for our spiritual growth, the capacity there is infinite. We're opened up to a whole realm of spiritual studies and spiritual expansion that doesn't exist to us when we see things from the place of the victim, of being, unable to co-create our reality, of taking responsibility for the results of what we are creating through our thoughts and our words and our actions. And which goes back, to this conversation we were having earlier about this relationship with the unseen and the seen, right? The manifestation of what we've accumulated through our thoughts and our actions and our words. And I think the Yahi also helps us to not accumulate, right? Because through that process of the vomiting and the shitting, we get to liberate our mochila, right? We get to clean out that baggage that we carry. And that is a priceless tool for us, especially in today's modern society when we're constantly accumulating, right? We have a discussion or a conversation that unsettles us, and we carry that dis-ease with us for the next 3 weeks, right? And it was a 2-minute interaction that created so much tension in the body that we get an ulcer because we carry it for 2 more years, right? So it's so it's learning how to cut those frequencies, those energies before they continue to plague us and create imbalance.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. It's just a sacred reframe of how we view pain and suffering. It's that's not what it is at all. It's an opportunity for beautiful growth and transformation and massive shifts to take place in our life if we embrace it and we just move through it. Right. And so the Yahe helps to really just strengthen our body and open our heart so we can move through it from that space of leading from our heart, right? Leading from what it is that we feel in our truth. And that beautifully guides us towards being more in alignment with, this higher vision that we have for ourselves.
Well, I have so thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Mars, and I think everyone tuning in is also going to really enjoy getting to hear from you and your beautiful medicine, all that you are. So thank you so much for coming on to the show. Before we part, would you share a little bit about your work that you're doing, your offerings, and how people can learn more about you?
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you again for having me. This is really beautiful conversation. I feel really at home talking to you. So thank you for that. So right now, currently, I'm offering courses online. So I have about 4 different running courses, and they're all rooted in, folk herbalism, medicine making, teaching more about how to use plants and herbs for spiritual healing and limpias, and also how to use these plants to heal our physical bodies. So in about 2 weeks, I'll be opening registration for another course, Medicine and Magic, which is a 5-week course that I teach about, how to make medicine from, your home, and really teaching also about the spiritual energetics behind the different types of medicine that we make and how it can not only help us to heal, again, the physical body, but the spiritual and emotional body. I love to gather community together. That is kind of my heart of work. So once a month, here in Woodland Hills in my home, I open up my space to have community come together and just drop in and to share and to meditate and to drink different plantitas and teas and to learn about them. And so I offer all my offerings through my website, doseofdiosa.com. And my Instagram is where I'm constantly sharing about all the different work and offerings that I have and are in creation. So again, also Dose of Diosa. And so that's where you can find out more of my work and what I'm brewing and cooking in my cauldron here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We will make sure to include your links in the show notes so anyone who feels called to work more with you or learn more about the work that you're doing can connect with you. And yeah, this has been super fun. Thank you so much, love. It's great to connect with you and wishing you many, many blessings on your path and all the beautiful work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having me. Thank you for opening this beautiful conversation for us and for everyone to listen. Feeling really grateful. Yeah.
From everyone at the Four Visions Market family, we would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and gained many new insights on plant medicines, ancestral wisdom, and much more. Please remember to visit our website at www.fourvisionsmarket.com for more resources and information on plant medicine and spiritual tools. And please don't forget to follow us across social media for regular updates on upcoming episodes. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this path with you all. Until next time, take care, stay present, and stay connected.